Hey, what's up everybody? This is Ben with the PointByPatrol. I'm the founder of a little HPDE group. Me and a couple buddies got together, just came up with a silly name, but really what it's all about is just having fun and executing some awesome passes. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. I am preparing for a upcoming track event at Carolina Motorsports Park in about 3 or 4 weeks from now. This is my FL5 Type R, number 9243, and before we go to the track, obviously there's some track preparation that we need to do, but what I'm excited to say is I've just received the HEL Oil Cooler Kit. This is something that adds safety and reliability on the track, keeps those oil temperatures down. Looking at the videos from Suzuka and the Nürburgring, it looked like the oil temperatures on the car really do like to spike high. Now, I know that the gauge in log R is just kind of guessing as to what the oil temperature is, but we certainly don't want to risk any kind of engine damage, and we want to keep those oil temps cool. So I did speak with Mike over at HEL this morning. The car is actually bone stock, with the exception of a PRL intercooler. HEL have not tested this kit with aftermarket intercoolers yet, and so I'm kind of acting as the guinea pig here, going to attempt to install this kit with the PRL intercooler and give some feedback to HEL so that they know whether or not it's going to work or if they need to reconfigure the oil cooler lines. But the main purpose here is to learn, hopefully to educate, and we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so we got all the bumper hardware removed. I am a bit weird. I do organize all of my clips exactly for the locations that they came out of. I don't think it really matters, but sorry. So for those of you who haven't removed one of these bumpers before, it is pretty easy, but there are a couple things that you should be aware of, and I'll share those with you now. So this little junction right here, and I'll peel back the tape a little bit, this slides up, just so that you're aware. It's got these little basically prongs that lock together. Another thing to be careful of is this clip right here. It's hidden underneath this seal and it can be a little bit tricky to get out. I didn't break anything, but if you were a little bit too hard on it, you risk potentially breaking it. Getting this part out is actually fairly simple. You just kind of rock gently, and you see here it's come loose. The more difficult clips actually live in here, just under the headlight. You can use like a very small like plastic interior tool just in case you get hung up on those to kind of press down on the tabs, but they are quite delicate, and I learned that when I installed the PRL intercooler. But for the most part, removal of the bumper is pretty easy. Right here, as you can see, I've only got a few screws, a total of 7 of those, plus the clips around the top. Let me count those up. Looks like 11 or 12 of those, and then the clips across the bottom, we got 13. So not a lot of hardware if you're thinking about it that way, but I am going to have to put the camera down to work this front bumper off. If you have a friend available, which I do not today, I'm working by myself, it's really a good idea to have a second set of hands, but bear with me, and I hope I'll have this thing off safely in a second. All right, so yeah, getting that bumper off is kind of a pain. One thing to look out for, and it happened on this side, it didn't happen last time, but This little clip here in the center likes to break. Last time I had to use a little bit of epoxy on this one, a little bit of the 5-minute epoxy to fix it. I'm going to end up having to do the same thing over on that side. Now, looking at the HEL instructions, I don't see any of this in any of their instructions, but the instructions state that I need to remove this center support as well as the crash support in order to route everything. I also have to make a modification to this bracket here. The good news is, and I'm just speculating now, I think the kit's going to work because the lines should come down from behind the crash bar through here. So far good news. I guess I'll go ahead and get started trying to take all of this stuff off. Haven't removed any of that stuff before, so might take me a few minutes to kind of figure it out, but I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, a little out of breath, but I got the crash bar off after having never done that before. It's not actually that hard. There are a couple tricks. I'll reveal those now. So initially what I tried to do first, and I don't know if you were able to pick up on that in the time lapse, thought it'd be smart and just remove these two guys right here, but those are really long bolts and it immediately interfered with the bracket here that holds the bumper on. Wasn't really in the mood to remove that or the headlight, so what I did instead is I removed the crash bar from back in here. These will hang you up though. If you look closely, this tab points up. You have to lift up and over in order to get off of that, and then you have to do the same thing on the other side, but then you also have to watch out here for the bottom of the headlight and the bumper bracket, or else it'll come forward and it doesn't have any clearance, it'll hit. So you kind of have to lift up, pull forward slightly, allow it to drop. Do the same thing on the other side. You'll notice here it's got the same tab, and this is in order to help you put it on and get it in the right place. Otherwise, I'd imagine it'd be pretty difficult. Either way, I got it off without too much trouble. So you've got to take off this top bracket. You got to take off this with all the plastic popper clips. Then you've got to take off this. It's got 514s, 112 and 110 on each side, just so you're aware. Now, from what I understand, the next step here is I've got to take the horn off, and then I have to remove this bracket right here, and I have to cut or grind like a diagonal cut through here to remove this piece. And then from what I understand, and I will likely learn more kind of as I go here, referring back to the instructions, of course, I think the longest of the two hoses goes through here and the shortest goes through here. You know, big trouble there is, as you can see, this is the belt on the AC compressor. Need to make sure that those lines do not touch or rub, otherwise you're going to have a really bad day at the track and a massive oil leak. Just to kind of go over the kit here, separate some things out. You've got your long hose and your short hose. Mike told me that the torque specification on these is anywhere from 30 to 36 foot-pounds. I do not have a tool large enough to do this. This is a 27 millimeter. I'm going to end up having to just work with muscle memory. I'm going to try with my torque wrench on a couple bolts that I have. I'll just, you know, put a bolt in a vise and turn it to 30 or 36. I'll probably go 36 and just try to gain some muscle memory on how that feels. I know that's not necessarily ideal. It'd be more ideal if I had the correct tool to do it, but unfortunately I don't. For those of you that do, use it. Here's the rest of the kit. I've done some pre-construction here. There's some stuff that does not appear in the instructions, and the instructions are in black and white, so it can be really difficult. There's a rubber grommet here, likewise down here, and the rubber grommets need to go between the bracket and the oil cooler itself. Obviously I haven't tightened any of this up yet, but just so that you know. And then these have a rubber O-ring inside of them. I'm assuming that's also the 30 to 36 foot-pounds. So 27 mil or a 1 1/16 socket. We'll be able to tighten those down. You don't want to murder them. You want to get it as close to that torque spec as you can. I will be able to get these to specification just because I have access to them. Aside from that, you've got a host of other items in here. Here is the sandwich plate, a couple more screws and brackets for mounting, P-clip, and these are pretty neat. These actually hold the hoses in their specific routing configuration, and there are 2 of them. One for the long hose, one for the short hose. So I'm gonna do a little brainstorming here, looking around, and I'll restart the video here in a minute. All right, guys, so back with you. Some not so good news, and I'm glad I ran into it now. There's a pretty major difference between the European model of the Type R and the ones that they ship here to America. So biggest issue, our crash bars here are made out of aluminum, and the crash bars in the UK are made out of steel. And so part of the instructions say, and let me get to that page just a second. So number 8 in the instructions says, using the supplied spacers and hardware, install the cooler assembly to the crash bar using the 2 right-hand pre-stamped holes. Here in America, we don't have pre-stamped holes, so there are no holes at all. Meaning, in order to get this to fit, I would have to drill into the aluminum portion of the bumper, the top lip of it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this top lip here, I would have to drill a hole through this and not use the supplied spacers. Also, it kind of cocks this up a little bit. I don't think that that's going to be a major issue, but as you can see here, I can get the bracket to align. The trouble is it has the oil cooler rubbing against the AC condenser, and obviously that doesn't work. So if I was to move this back straight, you can see that I no longer line up at all here, and I'm way too far forward here. So I can try to modify the existing bracket or make a bracket of my own. One thing that I do need to check though is if this is steel instead of aluminum. I'm assuming it's probably steel. Nope, it's aluminum. The magnet doesn't stick. So in order to get the angle to work out right back here where it would be ideal to drill holes, I would then have to cut this and get rid of this excess material here, and then re-TIG weld this further forward in order to get it to line up straight. So I've let the guys over at HEL Performance know about some of these issues here, and I'll keep thinking on this. It's getting towards lunchtime, and I'm getting hungry, so I'm probably not really thinking straight. Probably need to go eat, reassess, and see what exactly I want to do, whether it's to not install the kit at all and return it, or to come up with a workaround. So I'll keep you guys posted. All right, guys, so I'm here in the garage, and I hope I have good enough light. So I think I can get this to work. So yes, we've established that the bracket is not intended for use with the USDM aluminum crash bar. I don't mind drilling holes in the crash bar because the hardware that they've supplied is a bolt and a nut, meaning that it can just go through there, snug up, be good to go. But I think what I'm going to have to do is end up just cutting the HEL bracket some, and then finding the proper place to drill some holes in this. So this is what I've got, and I hope you can see this. So I've scribed a line that I'm going to cut off. So I don't need any of this. I really don't need this tab either. So potential spots where I could drill and sink a screw would be right about here and right about here. And I've got enough meat there and there to get a solid connection. Obviously, they put the holes where they did because their bumper, the steel bumper, has some pre-threaded holes that already exist there. Us guys over in America, unfortunately, we're not so lucky. So I'm going to make those modifications, and I'm going to continue on with this and share my findings with the guys over at HEL, and hopefully we can get something worked out, a kit that will work for us guys over here in America. I've also scribed a line here on the bottom, and that's basically where the crash bar touches. So that kind of gives me a general idea. I'm gonna have to flip over and over and then use a set of calipers just to make sure that I have adequate room. You know, lucky for me, and not everybody can say this, and I apologize, the garage is an absolute mess, but I have a milling machine, I've got a drill, I've got a bandsaw, and I have welding equipment just in case I should happen to need that. Also have a pretty solid grinder over here where I can modify brackets and get these things to kind of jig up and work. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to hurt their logo, it looks like. I'm sorry, guys, but you know, this is all in the name of automotive sports, fun, HPDE events, and sometimes you just got to get things to work. So I haven't gone to eat lunch yet. I'm going to go do that now. I couldn't just stop what I was doing. I had to keep at it there for a second because it was driving me nuts, but I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, I'm back at it after lunch now. So a couple things to go over real fast, and this is just sort of instructions. This bracket right here does need to be modified, so I shaved it down, and then you install this piece. This comes with the kit. You also remove this piece, which I'll show you. So this used to go here, but that comes off because that's where the hoses will be run through. You'll notice it's still here on the other side. And then I have mounted the oil cooler. This is upside down right now. I just got done installing these hoses onto the bottom of the oil cooler. I've still got the caps on the other side, but just to flip this up and kind of show you what I've done here, you can see where I drilled holes through, and I didn't end up cutting the bracket at all. It's all still there. But that's installed nice and tight. And as you can see on the bottom, I'm actually using the hardware that they supplied. This comes with nylon lock nuts. You see under here, hopefully you can see that where I have installed this. So now what I've got to do is reinstall the crash bar, which is going to take me a few minutes of fiddling around because these brackets here are designed to help you kind of center it with the 10mm bolt and the 12mm bolt here on the side. So it's going to be some guess and test and kind of moving it around here and there just to get it to go, but I'll go ahead and get started. All right, so yes, putting that crash bar back on is a pain in the butt. Can't speak for the Brits since they got the steel. Could be easier, don't know, but that's not a lot of fun. Gotta shuffle back and forth, trying to get it lined up to the witness marks from where it came off. Just, you know, try to put the bolt back where the bolt was. But I was able to get it back on here. And this is, God, that's hard to see. All right, so this is the amount of clearance that you have for these hoses with this larger intercooler. But you know, lucky to say, and hope you can see that, it doesn't look like it's rubbing or scrubbing on the intercooler or anything else. So I will take that. You can see where the longer of the two hoses goes into the clasp that came with the kit. This other hose is going to bend and go through that hole, and there's a P clamp that's going to help hold it, which I believe attaches to this intercooler bracket bolt. There is, and I left this guy off on purpose. There is another bracket that comes with the kit that attaches right here that helps to guide this longer hose in and around. And it's kind of hard to see, but that's the side of the motor in there. It's going to be really tight trying to avoid these belts, but if it worked on their car, should work on this car. As you'll notice, I left the protective caps on the bottom of these hoses just so I don't get any dirt, debris, or trash up inside. But for the most part, I think I can reassemble most of the fascia here, which I'll do right now. Side blooper, yes, I did mess up this clip. This tape is just holding it down in position. I did put some 5-minute epoxy in there. So that's the reason that that's there, because that clip was a little bit damaged. I can't imagine this part is very expensive from Honda, but I just don't feel like waiting for it, and I want to put my car back together. So bear with me, and we'll keep going here and try to put all this back in place. All right, so got that done. So as you can see here, I've got all these clips back in. You will have one extra that went to that old bracket down there. See the hole? That bracket's no longer there because that's where those lines run through. But all the other clips are on. Please keep in mind there is one up inside of this snorkel, if you can see that. Got this top piece back on. While I was down here, and this is something to point out to the guys over at HEL, I had to modify this. This came with the kit and it was completely round. I had to sand it down, basically cut it down there so that it would fit. Again, this is probably just another difference between having the steel crash bar versus the aluminum crash bar. I've managed to route the holes. Here's the P clamp holding this. I don't have this tight yet, obviously, because I'm probably going to need to manipulate these lines a little bit once I get up underneath the car. But everything else fits pretty well. You know, I'm pretty satisfied with the way that this fits in the clamp right here, the way that this the shorter hose is routing down, and kind of how this longer hose is gonna cut through inside of the fender well there. So so far so good. You can see here a little bit where the screw that I have sticks up a little bit, so it is kind of pressing on this shroud, but it's really not that much to worry about. This is like kind of just rubbery plastic. It's pretty moldable, bendable. One thing that I did have to do, and that anybody attempting this will probably have to do, I had to bend this horn bracket, otherwise the connector would have started rubbing on the oil cooler itself. I did put a little piece of electrical tape around the connection just in case for some reason that gets bent back and wants to rub. But right now, you know, I can fit probably like 2 or 3 quarters between that gap. So one thing to keep in mind. One thing I didn't realize, and obviously from the pictures too, since I don't think anybody's installed one of these yet, except for the folks that made this kit. You know, this is a 16-row set-rab oil cooler, and it doesn't look like, you know, the way that the air is going to flow. I mean, there's a lot of oil cooler down here that's not really going to get any airflow. Still better than having nothing, but just something to think about, point out. You know, perhaps if this bracket pulled this up a little bit higher, it would have better access. And it's possible that, you know, on the Type Rs that had the steel crash bars, that it's a little bit different, but I'll take what I can get right now. So now it's time to get under the car, remove the oil filter, put on the sandwich plate, and so I'll get started with that now. All right, so finally back with you here. That was a pain, but the line is run. You can see that it's in its clip there. Both of them are run through. Gonna get under the car here with you. Try to get some light up here so you can see. So this is how I have it clocked. And I know it can be difficult to see through here, but I have no contact with the drive belt. I'm low enough away from it there. Likewise, over here, you can kind of see where that AC belt comes down and how it's routed through. I did not follow the explicit instructions for how to clock, or rather torque this down. They basically told me just get it hand tight and then 3/4 turn past. I went ahead with the 36 foot-pounds like I did with everything else, and it seems snug on there, which is good. I have not started the car yet, but I did add roughly about 3/4 of a quart fill to it, and I would assume it's probably going to need a little bit more than that, since those are 10 AN lines. So those probably hold boatloads of oil. But while I'm here with you, just so that it happens all at the same time, I'll go ahead and start the car, and we can cross our fingers and hope that the damn thing doesn't explode, though I don't think it will. There are a couple other things I want to do. Those lines, they fit, you know, they're just the right length. Wish they had been maybe an inch longer each. I do have some concerns over where the long line could potentially rub on the frame as it comes through that hole, and underneath the pulley, the serpentine belt, and into the oil cooler. So I'm going to develop kind of a fix for that. I do have some of that Velcro heat shielding. I think I'll probably use that, and then I'm just going to have to keep an eye on it from time to time to make sure that everything's good there. But we're in the car now, and here we go. Well, it's running. Nothing blew up. We'll go to log R real fast and look at our oil oil pressure. And this is on a cold start. Engine's idling at about just under 1500 RPMs. The oil will still be thick since it's cold, but I really do want to see, just a sec, I really want to see that come down significantly. You know, typically when this thing's at idle, the oil pressure is around, like, I don't know, 16, 17 PSI. Another thing to do now is to check for leaks. All right, car sounds normal, car sounds happy. Right off the bat, I don't see any leaks. You can see the line kind of down there. I know that the light's kind of difficult in this video. I am checking down here. I don't see anything down here. Everything looks good here, and it's right there that I'm worried that it's rubbing against the frame. I mean, that's kind of sharp metal, and the motor is going to flex back and forth with acceleration, deceleration. That does remind me, while I'm here with you, to go ahead and tighten this guy down. Should be There, done. Get back underneath, check the leaks. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not smelling anything. We don't allow the car to fully warm up. I won't bore you guys with those details. I'll just hit you with a quick blurb after the fact. Yeah, thanks for watching. Click subscribe. All right, everybody, so final takeaways here. I did just get done checking the oil on the car. As you'll see here, everything's reinstalled. I was about a quarter quart low. I had added about 3/4 of a quart before I started the car initially, but on the stick, about a quarter quart low, so I added another quarter quart. We're now right at the full mark where we need to be. So that's taken care of. Another thing that I realized that I forgot to mention, sorry, I'm kind of walking around here, I just noticed I got a couple dribbles of oil on the front bumper. One thing I did forget to mention was the size of the holes that I drilled into the crash bar. And just for your reference, that size, and it fits perfectly with the hardware that comes from HEL. It's 17/64. Again, that's 17/64. Also allowed the car to heat up while I was you know, kind of putting everything back together. Happy to report oil pressure's right there at 19 psi, which is in the neighborhood of normal there. One thing of note, you can hear the oil pump a little bit better now in the car. So that's one thing to consider before installing this. You kind of hear the, you know, like kind of a high-pitched noise. I don't think it's anything that I'm, you know, concerned about at all. But you know, just so that anybody is aware. Oh, and last things last, looks like I forgot to plug in my external air temp sensor, which is now going to be a complete pain with the bumper back on. Such is my luck. Thanks again for everybody watching, and don't forget to click subscribe, and you guys have a good rest of your day.